Yeah, we just went straight into it.
Yes. So for everybody watching, we just had like this great 10-minute chat about things, but we weren't recording. So now we want to talk about it again so you can hear what we
Yeah,
were talking about.
yeah. We gotta reproduce it naturally somehow.
Somehow. It's never the same though. It's like but yeah.
It wouldn't be as elaborate probably. It'd be shorter version.
So we were talking about Cubase and Pro Tools and stuff 25 years ago and what's used in Australia.
Let me do my intro. Okay. I'm Edd Bazaar, everyone, and from Live Guitar Solos, and I've got a great man here, superstar. I'm stoked to have him here, Mr. Bumblefoot Ron Thal.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning. Well, good evening.
It's actually 1:40 in the morning.
All
Monday.
right, so it's yeah,
It's morning.
it's
The next morning.
qualifies this morning, so we're both in the morning. Yeah.
Yeah, so we just went straight into the whole production thing, and which is great. I want to get into that, but if we could I just want to have a bit of a discussion about your introduction to music. I mean, I know it's probably it's definitely well documented, right? But I know Eddie Van Halen was a huge influence for you. I mean, obviously, who wasn't influenced greatly? Which guitarist, by Eddie Van Halen? When was the moment you knew that music was for you and that's the direction you wanted to take in your life?
Okay, I was born and raised in the boroughs of New York City, lived in Brooklyn, and then we moved to what is often called the Forgotten Borough, Staten Island. And it's just all deer and rabbits, and it was just years before the bridge went up from Brooklyn to Staten Island. Otherwise, you just had to kind of swim everywhere. And so I moved into this new neighborhood. I was 5 years old. This was 1975. And there were all these kids my age, and they all had older brothers and sisters that were like 7 or 8 and parents. And they all were just, it was the 70s. Everybody was into music. Like, music was amazing back then. Everything out there was just fucking fantastic. Whatever kind of music it was like the best of the best. So I would go over to my friend's house to play, and I would see all these albums lying around, like Elton John, Paul McCartney, Beatles, this. And over the years, Ramones and Sex Pistols and Blondie and whatever else. So we would just pick up one of these random pieces of art. It's like, oh, what's this? This looks interesting. And we would just go up to my friend's room, and everyone had a turntable, and you would just pop it on as if you were just watching TV, and you just put on the album, you just stare at the speakers and listen. And that's what we would do, stuff like that. So we would do that. And I saw this one weird album that had these people with painted faces, and it was Kiss Alive. And put that on, hear the audience cheering, and it just blew my mind. And that's what made me want to do this. At 5 years old, I heard that. I was like, that's what I want to do. That energy, whatever that is, I want to be doing that. I don't know what's going on, but I'm going to figure it out. So by a year later, I had a band with my brother and my neighbor, and we were writing songs. And I mean, what does a 6-year-old write about? I mean, my interests were space, the planets, things like that. I was just amazed by it all. So my very first song.
Playing guitar at that point?
If you could call it that. We had instruments and we did what we could. So first song I wrote was called Jupiter is Nice. And at that age, you are very limited in your life experiences and everything that you can draw from. So you have a very limited life vocabulary at that point. So the song Fox on the Run from Sweet, I just ripped it off and just put my own words. Jupiter is nice, take my advice, I skate on the ice, Jupiter is nice. Started with the chorus, smart kid, and then to the verse. I won't sing, I won't torture you all with that whole song, but So to record them, we would have a cassette recorder in the corner of the room. My brother had this Bugs Bunny drum set. I had a picture of Bugs Bunny holding a carrot like it was a cigar and said, "What's up, Doc?" on the kick drum. And he was like 10 feet away so that it wasn't as loud. And we had just little, kid-sized nylon string kid guitars. And we would play like a foot away from it, and we would record the music to our songs. And then we would take that tape recorder and we would have another one just like 2 inches away. We would hit play on this one, hit record on this one, and take the music we just recorded, bounce it onto here while we sang. And we would sing. So we figured out how to overdub vocals and multi-track onto here. Now we have our finished thing. We have the music and the vocals. And then to make copies for our friends, we just play this one and record on this one, and we're all just like standing around just like, shh, 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 so that you don't hear any noises of sneezing or coughing or anything while we're making our demo copies. And that is what we did. And we would put on concerts in the basement of my house, in our backyard, in my neighbor's backyard, eventually at the school across the street where we went to. And I would spend the day just like taking a piece of paper and just cutting it up into tiny little pieces and getting little cups and filling the cups with cut up paper. So then the last song, everyone could throw confetti in the air, homemade confetti for the last song. We would cue them when to do it. And we just did what our heroes were doing and just exploring more and more stuff. I mean, you couldn't avoid great music if you tried. Like, everyone listened to the radio. You had albums and you had the radio. When you're listening to the radio, it's the 70s, like, hey, here's a new album from Queen with their hit blah, blah, blah. Hey, here's a new one from Pink Floyd, blah, blah, blah. Here's a new one from AC/DC, blah, blah, blah. Like, here's a new one for, like, just whatever it was just great stuff. So you were always inspired and always filled with just great things to influence you musically. So we all just did what we saw our heroes doing, and we just kept on doing it and just never stopped. The gear got better. It went from tape recorders to building a separate room for drum isolation, to getting mics, to getting like a live soundboard that we could put everything into, to getting a reel-to-reel, to, and just going and going and going. Just everything expanded with that. The songs, in my case, progressively got worse. And from when I was 6, wrote better songs then. And the live shows went from playing in the backyard to eventually, it was the 80s, nobody checked ID, so as long as you had a puberty mustache, you could play bars. So at 14, I was playing bars and doing gigs, and we would just do half covers. Half of our set was Rush, like old crazy Rush songs, Bytor and the Snow Dog and stuff like that. And then all originals and a lot of Maiden, and a lot of Maiden and a lot of Rush. And that's it. And you just keep going and going and going. And I started taking guitar lessons, studying all the academic stuff around 7 years old, and never stopped. And even now I seek out whatever I can. You just keep learning. You want to forever be a student. That should be your goal. And I always think of it this way. It's like what you can learn and what you can do is this infinite road. And you just want to get as far down that road as you can. But in the perspective of it, you're always at the very beginning. You're always a beginner. No matter how far you get, no matter how much you do, it is endless, it's limitless what else you can do. And it kind of keeps your brain fresh and it keeps it all exciting, just knowing that no matter how far, how many gigs you've done, how many albums you've made, how many techniques you've learned, whatever, you are just a beginner. And there is so much ahead of you at any point, at any age, at any level. There is so much ahead of you. Yeah.
So yeah, and that's amazing experience that you have there, and you obviously from a very young age had an interest in sort of experimenting and trying new sounds, and like you said, like you were doing, that's sort of that obviously that interest progressed just as much as the music and sort of intertwined, and your music production skills continue to improve. Was that a strong sort of motivation for the direction you ended up taking, actually doing music production and actually teaching it in college?
Yeah, I was always a tinkerer, you could say. I like to tinker with things. I like to see how things work. I want to understand things. I want to make things. This just popped in my head. I made this like system of strings at different points so that I could shut off my light and turn it on, like shut the light switch and turn it on from my bed in my room when I was a kid. Just weird tinkering things I would do. So once I got more and more into guitar, I started tinkering with it. And I would read magazines about Eddie Van Halen. He would dip his pickups in wax, so I would try that. I didn't have a bar. I didn't have a floating bridge, and I wanted one. So I made one out of a bridge that had like a spring thing. And I remember I went to a guitar lesson when I was 11 to show my teacher. It's like, look what I made. And it just had this big screw that was coming out of it that I would push down. That was my bar into this thing that had like this spring behind it. And it was like this circular thing that the strings were around that you bend down and it just turns the circular thing. And I hit it once and the spring snapped and it broke. And I spent the whole lesson for like an hour just fighting tears. And I was so just bummed out. But I always liked to tinker. So I would take guitars. When I was 12 years old, I would paint the backs of dungaree jackets. I would paint album covers on them. I was very into art also. Like I would do a lot of painting and drawing and stuff. Not anymore, I suck at it. But I would do a lot of Iron Maiden albums and things like that for $20 each, and saved up enough money to get this old Ibanez guitar that was hanging up at a local music store that had bar to it. It was an Ibanez 1983 Roadstar. So it was like a Strat type guitar. And finally I got it. And the first thing I did when I took it home is I chipped the paint off it. It was black. And I put a DiMarzio, I think a super distortion in it, and just started fucking with it. And it went through a lot of changes over the years and eventually became that Swiss cheese guitar that I used for like 13 years on everything. And DiMarzio pickups, I reached out to them in my early 20s and they, God bless them, they believed in me and they gave me an endorsement before I was really doing anything. And they set me up with what I still use now. It's Tone Zone and a chopper. And the chopper is a great pickup. It reacts like a single coil, but has the fullness of a humbucker. And it's really nice. And the setup is, normal humbucker by the bridge. And then this has a single coil. The two together, which I use a lot, it's just a nice, tasty, organic kind of vibe. The two out of phase gives it this nice quacky sound, and then just this one. In fact, I should just play it. So, humbucker, 1. And single coil, just a little more articulation and stuff. The two together. And out of phase. And then just this one. Yeah. Good stuff. Good pickups. This configuration, I don't use a tone knob. I use a volume knob, and it has a treble bleed in it where when you roll down the volume, it actually gets brighter. So let's say you have a nice dirty sound. When you roll it all the way down, it doesn't get like this. It actually opens up a little bit and gets cleared up. It helps with that. So that's what I do on these. Yeah. Yes. So wait, I'm sorry. The question.
Yeah, no, that's cool.
I tend to ramble off in tangents. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. Yeah, so like you were saying, so you like to tinker and sort of experiment. So Eddie Van Halen is known to have done that, right? Was it known back then by you? at that time, or was it just a natural this knack that you had to and desire you had within yourself?
I was more of like an Angus Young type player, like a very just reckless, bluesy kind of player. And, I mean, it was never even about guitar for me. It was just about songs. It's like, this is a tool that you use to contribute to a song. Like, that was the whole thing. I was into bands and making songs. And my contribution was to play guitar in it and to write songs, co-write songs. I was 12 years old. I was late in the game hearing Eddie. It wasn't until I was 12 in like 1982 when I was at a band practice and some kid that was hanging out was like, "You know how to tap?" And I'm like, tap dancing. I was like, "What are you talking about?" And he showed me. He's like, and I'm like, and, yeah. And I was like, "You never heard Eddie Van Halen?" I was like, "Who?" And he showed me the first thing I heard, and it just recently come out was just that. And I never heard a guitar make a sound like that. I didn't know a guitar could make a sound like that. And it was like opening a door to a whole other world of guitar stuff. It's like, oh my God, all right. Then I was on a quest to see how expressive you can get with a string. How much can you do to make a string speak? I mean, he did it quite well, to understate it. So I really started just experimenting with different things. And that's when I started getting into just understanding the divisions of strings and how the way you divide a string, it becomes a reciprocal of that division in the frequency. So let's say you have, let's just take 110, 110 waves a second. You divide the string in half, which is your exact 12th fret, the way the guitar is set up. And that's how you intonate is it should be exactly half the length of the string that's vibrating. So 1/2 becomes 2/1. It becomes 220, double the frequency. If you divide the string into a third, it becomes 330, 3/1. If you divide into a quarter, 1/4 of the length of string becomes 4 times the frequency, 440. And yeah, so from there, I was like, all right, well, notice that the division points where you see them on the neck coming out of the center are exactly the same distance in either direction, only the frets are getting smaller and it looks a little bit different, but it's actually, it's 12 frets and then 7 frets, 5 frets, 4 frets. And it's like, okay, so that works with closed notes as well. You get them here too. Just, you find the center of the vibrating length of string and the same thing in either direction. So then I started thinking about it. I was like, well, first of all, there's all these other notes that you can get from harmonics. So how can you get more notes out of the string if it's all just shortening lengths of vibrating pieces of string? So I started thinking about, all right, what are we doing? We're just pressing the string against a fret and it vibrates from there. The shorter the string, the faster it's vibrating. So I needed to find a way, tried all different things and found that if I just have almost like a mobile fret that I keep on this finger, I can use it to continue, if I just tap it down and touch it to the string, to get the continuation of notes. By instead of pressing the string to a metal fret, it's like pressing a mobile fret to the string. And you could just keep the notes going. So I used that, but then Also, the thing is, let me move this where you can see both of the necks a little bit better. There we go. You don't want to see my face. All right. So if the harmonics are the same distance in each direction out of the center, which means that they're also the same distance from the ends, there should be any changes in the length of the vibrating string, even if you're fretting down. Let's say you're fretting down and changing the length of string by this much. Yeah, in this thing, I don't use it much. It's just kind of there in case cleanup. Okay, we're taking this much, shortening the length of string. So if everything that happens in one direction also happens in the other, whether it's harmonics coming out of the center, like, that means that you should be able to take this distance, apply it from the opposite end of the string, and change the pitch the same way. So there it is. Bring it up close. You just. So what I like to do is play from both directions of the string. So let's say you want to do something, just roll this up. My sleeves always dull the strings. That last little bit, you can grab it here and go. That. And you can just do everything. And this slides, so it's like a fretless. So I use it to extend a bend. Oops. Stuff like that. In that Simon and Space song I just put out, I put a close-up so you could really see it being used for stuff. I should really have more volume to do this. Okay, I'm doing a very bad version of this, but so I use it a lot to get just extra notes if I want to go. So you can go. Instead of going, grabbing it from there. So, and you could also get nice imperfect tones out of it, you know, not just your exact precise pitches. You get, you can sort of get it just to be off. I like adding these little trills to bends. Yeah, just making it speak just a couple of new words. That's all. And then as far as the fretless goes, yeah, fretless. Just your eyes, ears, and prayers. And your vibrato is more of a back and forth. You never have to bend because you would just slide up to what you would bend to.
It reminds me about how Greg Howe does his sort of sliding. Instead of bending so much, he does the up and down, even with the frets. Yeah, it's sort of like a fretless sort of technique.
Yeah,
it changes the sound of the what the notes he's trying to reach, and how he's, rather than just bending. It's so that's the whole thing about making your own sound, isn't it? So that's what Eddie did. But then you got guitarists like Steve Lukather, you know, he does the thing on the tremolo, like that sort of vibration sound, you know, that just.
yeah.
And I love him, Steve Morse, like he's used to chromatics that I love, you know. It's just so different. It was so different. It was his personality. And how important is that for any guitarist to be able to do that rather than just be copycats of whatever they hear? From your experience.
Well, it's good to learn what other people are doing and copy it and understand it and get ideas from it. But everyone should have their own personality. Everyone does have their own personality, but you should be showing it. You should, yeah, don't be shy about, don't force it. Don't feel like you have to be different for the sake of being different. If being you is just playing, just then do that proudly, unapologetically. There's nothing wrong with that. The world needs that. You were put here for that reason to play that, and you should. So it's, yeah, I'm just a weird fucking dude, so I do weird shit. Some people aren't as weird, so they don't do things as weird. Some people are more weird and they do weirder stuff. It's just be who you are, and yeah, you got to live with yourself. You have to be happy with what you do, and you can't be a fraud or disingenuous or not authentic. You have to do what is truly you. Otherwise, you're gonna grow to hate music and yourself. Very important.
I mean, look at Gary Clark Jr., right? So, I mean, he makes some great music. I mean, that's what he does. Just what he does. He just does what he does best. So, and you can't beat authenticity in his voice, his solo style. Like,
everything. When you hear him, it's truly him. He's not pretending. He's not imitating. He's not wearing a costume. It's legit. And you can tell when it is and when it isn't. And for better or for worse, everybody should do that. Absolutely. Because you don't know how the world is going to respond to it. You can play the way you play and 1,000,000 people are going to love it, or 10 people. And honestly, as long as one person is happy from it, yeah, in the scale of having a career, it may not feel like a success, but honestly, if you affect one person in a positive way, there's a butterfly effect to that. And it shouldn't be minimized, the importance of that. Yeah, don't gauge any of it, your enjoyment of it, or judging anything based on how many people like it. It's, if somebody, even if just you like it, that's one person that you talked off the ledge through what you do. Yeah, and that matters. It makes a difference because everybody affects everybody. So as long as you're making even yourself happy, as long as one person is happy, even if it's yourself, great if it's more, but it's not up to us. We have to do what is real to us, and the rest of the world decides from there. And as long as in the end, you can look back and say, all right, I didn't bullshit my way through life. It's okay.
yeah, and authenticity is key, definitely. No matter what it is that you do, and I think that's key to many things in life. Really, in a lot of ways, and especially with music. Like you're evoking emotions, the form of expression, and if it's authentic, people are gonna know, like you said.
Yeah, you're giving a piece of yourself. If people feel like they're not really getting it, there's no connection. Like some people you just connect to, some people you don't, because either they're not being genuine or you're just not a soul match, which is fine. There's something for everybody and it's all good. You know what? I could put out a song and some people love it, some people hate it. And that's how it's supposed to be. It's for the people that love it. It's not for the people that hate it. I think of it like lobster. I don't like lobster. People love lobster. I don't like it. To me, it smells like just, I don't know. It's got a funky smell to it. I don't like it. So lobster should exist for the people that like lobster, and they're going to love it. For me, give me a big fucking bloody steak, and I'm happy. And that's for me. Vegetarians are going to look at that and not be too happy. For them, a lovely salad, some cashew butter. So that's fine. Everything exists for the people that it's meant to connect with. It's like puzzle pieces. one puzzle piece doesn't fit every other piece. You know, it fits the one that you're this puzzle piece, your listeners are this one. And for the rest, you know, you shouldn't be mad that you don't fit these other puzzle pieces. And those other puzzle pieces, you know, they're going to be like, I don't fit with that puzzle piece. And that's enough about puzzles. So, yeah. But that's the truth of it. It's like, you can't please everyone. You shouldn't try to. Just do what's legitimate, and whoever likes it is going to like it. Whoever doesn't, there's something else they're going to like, and they should. And that's good. Yeah.
I'm not able to see your face. Yeah. Yeah.
I know, it's just like a talking beard. Let me move this back. Yeah. Hang on. Yeah.
It didn't distract from the importance of what you were saying at all, but yeah, but
keep it all tied up, otherwise it gets caught in the guitar, gets caught on the guitar thing, like, so yeah. I just keep it all wound up. And
that's quite long. It's quite long.
I actually started growing it in Australia in 2010. My shaver broke, and it was a 3-week tour. And I was like, all right, I'm just going to shave when I get home. And people just started giving me this shitty attitude, like disgusted, like I've greatly offended humanity. Like, what are you, growing a beard? Like, it's the most hideous crime you could commit. And I was like, I just broke my shaver was the problem. And it started getting annoying. I was like, what the hell is everyone's problem with beards? So I decided that anytime anyone gave me an attitude about a beard, about growing a beard, I was going to wait a month before I shaved, just to see. And it's been about 14 years now. So, yeah. And back then, no one had beards back then. Everyone was clean
exactly. Everyone was shaving.
Yeah.
It's different now. Now professionals, like CEOs, are wearing beards now. Like, it wasn't the case back like 10, 15 years ago, you know?
No.
It's crazy. It's funny, hey.
Probably the same douchebags are like, what are you, growing a beard? Or probably have bigger beards than I do right now. Yeah.
Yeah, so your music production skills, that was sort of, where did you study that as part of your music training? As the same as your guitar? How did you train? Was it just music lessons? Did you go to college and do music there?
Well, I was recording whatever band I had over the years. So it started with those 2 cassette recorders facing each other and just doing it, learning more and more as you go. And every time you record, you learn something new and you get a little better at it. That never stops. So a lifetime of doing it and just figuring out ways of doing things. Like, for example, there's this band called the Dodies, Dodies, great band. I showed you their stuff, yeah. It's a duo, kind of garage rock. Singer, guitar player, the drummer plays the whole kit with one arm while playing keyboards on a bass and singing backing vocals, and they just lock in and they're great and have a lot of personality and very musical and intense. Great stuff. So not the last album that we did, that one's coming out soon, called Dreamism. The one before that called Floating in Limbo. We were recording at my friend's studio in Ireland called Wild Water Studios, great place. And the room that he had was very dead. It was very tight, like most studios, you know, it's just, you don't want to ring it out. I'm the opposite. I recorded in here with this like big ceiling and everything is just shiny and reflecting, where you hit a snare in here, it just sounds like a big gunshot. Bah! And it's, yeah, good drum sounds in this room. So that's what I like. I like rooms with character that add energy to stuff. So first thing we did is we took things off of the walls, because I know what this band wants. They want it to sound like you're in a room with them. Yeah, very roomy sound they go for. So we pulled everything, all the rugs out of there, everything. We went and found a disassembled van and took all the sheets of metal and put them on the walls and everything, and to just try and get as many things reflecting for the drums. But the last thing that we did, it was just an idea that I had to just really capture dirt and grit and tone and nastiness of the drums, is we got these metal buckets and I hung them where they were just like dangling so that nothing dampened them, and put a microphone inside them. So like, here's the bucket, a mic capturing all the sound that gets bounced around in there, and put one aimed at a certain angle that was capturing the snare, and then one outside the door in the hallway that was capturing this one spot with just listening, where I just heard like the whole kit come together like in this bottomy kind of fullness, and put the bigger one, the bigger bucket, and a mic in there. And it was a big part of the drum sound that just gave this nasty, gritty life and tone to the drums. And then what I did is when I was mixing, the buckets themselves, they had a resonating tone, like whatever it was. So I would find that tone, just you take an EQ, tighten it up a lot, pin it real high, and just sweep across until it really comes out. And that's where you know it is. And then just reverse that thing, dip it down so that it's not this constant boo, boo, boo also happening. You get rid of that and you're getting a more balanced, dirty, resonating, gritty thing happening inside those buckets, and just raise them up in the bucket tracks. And it just gave a great sound to the drums. Yeah.
The thing I noticed, the first thing I noticed when you sent me the dirties, I can't remember the name of the song, but the first thing I noticed was the drums. And straight away, I thought Zeppelin. I don't know, like it was just that roomy feel. There's a lot of space, and it felt like you were there.
Exactly. That's what you want to capture. For this band, if you had this very polished, proper, I mean, it is polished in the right way to make them sound like you're there with them. That's the idea, is to create a feeling, a vibe when you listen to it. It's not about getting everything clean and precise and perfect and quantized to the grid and drum samples. They don't use any of that. They are facing each other in the room the way they comfortably do everything, which is the way they play live. And yeah, the two of them play together in a room, and first or second take was it. Always. Yeah, they have their shit down. If they did it to a click, they'd be chasing the click, and then you have to take the drums and tighten them up to the click and then play the guitar to that, and it's just a bunch of bullshit. No, for them, just play it like you play. I want to capture the spirit of this band, what they really have. So make it sound also like a well-mixed, controlled environment, but you're there with them. All the human, beautiful imperfection that you get from just being a human being, captured in there. They're not mistakes, no. We're talking about the things that only happen once because your hand hit it a certain way, or just whatever it is, those moments that you want to capture. So that is what I like to go for when producing a band, is bringing out, really amplifying their personality and what makes them great to listen to and to connect with.
I mean, because it didn't sound, a lot of stuff, especially these days, sound very compressed. They sound very like tight sounding. I don't know if that's the right word to use. It not that live element is not there. But also, like you said, the drummer didn't use a click track. I was actually thinking that. Well, I was like, this sounds on time. It sounds live. Sounds like he's right on time. Like it didn't sound offbeat at all. But that was all live.
Good drummers, very often, like a good drummer, let me put it this way, a great drummer can play to a click track and sound like he's not playing to one. People like Simon Phillips, people like that. But also a great drummer doesn't need a click track, and they could play and they have a good natural steady tempo and feel and pocket and everything. And you just have to be good enough to play your own music well. As long as you do that, and they do that. Yeah.
No, I really noticed that. Yeah, this is sort of you're describing your production style and what you're going for, and also you're looking for you're trying to bring out the personality of the artist that you're producing as well.
Yes, I should be invisible in the process. No one should hear any of my influence at all. I don't exist. It is all about making them as much them as you can. And it's different for every band, every artist, everyone. Different approach all the time. It depends on who it is and what kind of sound they're going for, what they want to portray, what they want people to get from it. It's all about that. And honestly, producing is my biggest love. It's not guitar. It's not. I love producing. I love being a coach more than being on the field. I love helping people make their stuff happen and using all the mistakes I've made over the decades and learned from, hopefully, to help them do that. And I also like making my own music. And I play the bass, I play this, I sing, I do everything. For me, it's just about making songs. Most of the time, I've done vocal music where I sang. And if I had a good melody, instead of always playing it on guitar, I would sing it and then just do the crazy shit on guitar. For this upcoming album, it's all instrumental. I just kept my hand over my mouth. Every time I had a melody in my head, it's like, don't write words, no. And just kept it on guitar. So there's more melodic stuff going on. Crazy moments too, but yeah.
I want to definitely get into the new stuff as well, as much as you can tell us before the release. But what about your music from when you began? So you had, we won't get into all of it because you got so much music, but just a brief sort of run through, just to show really your journey, and it's really evolved your sound and what you've your releases, and from your debut album, which was your solo album, which was phenomenal.
It was different.
It was different, and there's always been sort of a quirkiness, like not meant in a bad way. There's sort of an element of that, but mixed with virtuoso guitar, and then you got the softer moments. You got the sort of it's like a wild roller coaster ride, really, and not in a bad way at all. Is that why you became a solo artist more rather than being part of a band, because you could just really let out all that you had emotionally into your music that maybe other band members won't be able to catch on with?
Well, I like both. I like collaborating with people because they bring in something that I can't, I wouldn't, I'm incapable of. And yeah, having that, working with other people, that was always what I wanted anyway. I always wanted to just be in a cool rock band and just get out there and play and make songs and make people happy. That's it. So I love being in bands as long as people are sane and functional and non-destructive, which is a lot to ask of a band. It is. So yeah, I love that aspect of a band because people are going to do things that you can't. You will be more in the sum of everything, being part of that band musically. But then you also have the side of you where you want to put 100% of yourself into it and get 100% out, connected with people. So that's where the solo stuff comes in. And I just found that with everything, whether it's recording my own stuff and then sharing that with people and recording other people and producing people, or taking lessons and studying and learning more and more about what makes music work and then sharing that with people and teaching. All of it is sort of just, they're branches of the same tree that you want to just keep growing and growing as much as it can. And the most important part of that is sharing it with everyone else. Whatever you do, share it with other people. Someone taught you something, they shared it with you. So do the same. Take what you've learned, share it with other people. You learned how to record. You can record bands. Go record some bands. Share it with people. Help other people. You play guitar. You play live. Go play with other people too. Join them for a show. Just hop on stage and have some fun. And you're writing songs. Do it with other people. And not just for bands. Like I do it for TV shows and video games and horror movies and all kinds of stuff. Been doing that for years. The teaching, yeah, it went from being a high school dropout to being an adjunct professor at a legit college in New York State, teaching music production. It's kind of a long way to get there, but yeah, just always share what you do. That's the important thing.
I think I agree with that, because it's all about connecting, isn't it? And experiences and people, like you said, sharing, and you can learn from it and adapt more things that sort of advances your own interests and your own sound in ways that you never thought of otherwise. But it's all about sharing, isn't it? And also discovery, your own research on things, music, other music. There's so much music out there. Exactly. But so you doing movie soundtracks or movie?
Yeah, I've done video game soundtracks. I did one of the first CD-ROM video games that had actual music on it, 16-bit recorded music. It was this like underground cult wacky game from Sega called Wild Woody, about a pencil that would like draw things and erase his enemies and go through all these different worlds on like a pirate ship and then a cemetery, and like really tough game and really strange, wacky game. Yeah, that was in 1995, 96, did the whole soundtrack to it. Done, I don't know if you know a show that was on VH1 called That Metal Show. Yeah, so the theme to that, did a lot of music for the Osbournes on MTV and just all kinds of shows, just tons of things. Everything from, just little bits of my music have been on everything. So You Think You Can Dance, Oprah Winfrey, McDonald's commercials, and people have no fucking idea. They have no idea that they're hearing my shit. Yeah. There was another show on Spike TV called MXC, which was this like Japanese game show where people really just like fuck themselves up, and it was almost like a mixture of like a game show and Jackass. Did the theme song to that. So yeah, I've done a lot of things that people don't know about, and which is fine. It's not about me. I don't need the pat on the back. I don't need, but it's just kind of funny. It is. So yeah, I've done a lot of that stuff. I love doing that stuff.
But it just goes to show that once you put your music out there, or in your personality, really, I mean, then what? Sega came and contacted you after your debut album, right? And that led to that, and it just led to a whole other slew of things. And also what's interesting with your movie themes and what's the word? What do you call scores? Movie scores.
Film scores, movie scores, soundtracks. Yeah.
I mean, that is just shows a whole different element of what you're capable of doing, and also hip hop.
Yeah, a ton of that. Producing hip hop artists and doing all kinds of stuff. Yeah, a lot of different, and that has been wonderful. I've worked with opera and all kinds of, just you name it, whatever it is. They've been in the studio and done it, and it's so cool to just break down the music to see what makes it what it is, and to create something that you normally don't do, that's not your usual lane, and it adds to what you do. It becomes inspiration. Absolutely, it becomes influence. It's just another brick in your structure. Yeah, all kinds of stuff.
Well, that's just inspiring to see, because I mean, there's so much out there, rather than just, and I think that's a bit of your mind as well, isn't it? Your personal approach to things. Like, you like to tinker. You're a tinkerer. You like to explore and find new things.
My goal is not to be famous, not to be a rock star. It's, and maybe this is from like studying too much shit about space and realizing just the insignificance of things. I don't want to bum people out with that, but that shit doesn't matter. It's so trivial. You are here by accident as some just weird combination of cosmic dust that came together at this time where we got to experience Van Halen and play these things, and life is short. Yeah, most of the men in my family died around my age. I don't know how much longer I have. And it's all about the race. So every day you're dying a little bit, but you're also living a lot if you choose. It's all about, for this moment that we're here, why the fuck we're here, make the most of it. You know, all you have is now and a whole bunch of nows. And don't waste them. You don't get them back. And they're given to you as some weird, inexplicable gift or curse or whatever the fuck it is. But whatever it is, you have this opportunity to live to the fullest and experience things to the fullest and enjoy and to share and to do things that are going to outlive you. If I die tomorrow, my single will still be on Spotify and people will get to hear it. So am I completely dead? Am I still maybe affecting people, hopefully in a good way? All of that, that's really what it's about. Maybe I've studied too much Stoic philosophy about, you know, memento mori and just, you know, remember death and all that stuff. But this is not depressing shit. This is the reality you want to face and you want to include in the equation of how you choose to live. This stuff matters. Does fame matter? Well, to some, yeah. But really, it's not about that. It's about you just have one shot at consciousness, I think. You know, maybe that's the dark matter that, you know, connects everything, you know, that we don't see. Who the fuck knows? But ultimately, we have to assume that all we have is our life right now. Don't waste it on stupid shit. Have fun. See how far you can take things. You know, there are things built into our DNA, our existence, that push us and drive us to do the things that we do, whether it's to make people happy, to make music, to connect with people. Be in touch with that and don't fight it. And if anything, you know, use it to have a good life. In the end, you know, if you read a bunch of shit about what old people say when they're in their last days, they don't talk about how much money they made or this or that or any of that. They talk about the things that really mattered, which is big part of that is, did they work too hard on the wrong things or did they enjoy themselves? Did they give enough time to people they love and love them? Did they put time into, you know what? I'm talking about a bunch of heavy shit. You all just wanted to talk about shredding stuff watching this. But this is the reality of it. This is the truth. I could bullshit you and just say, oh yeah, it's about this scale and that scale. None of that fucking matters. What matters is, for whatever weird reason, you were put here right now and given a soul and given the opportunity to share it with other people and connect and brighten other souls. Don't fucking waste it. Do that. And yeah, we can all go online and shit on each other and whatever and yeah, but that's really wasting what you've been given. So, you know, rethink and really see the very, very big picture of everything and live life from that beyond an eagle-eyed view. Like, you know, just live that way and music and have fun and enjoy what you enjoy and fuck the rest and just be happy. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you? I don't know if you saw the interview that Mike Tyson did after his fight with whatever, Jake or Logan Paul, one of those I don't know if you saw
Oh,
the.
saying that he won because at 58 he got in there and got to do his thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and she asked him about the little girl that interviewed him after the fight. She asked him about his life and his achievements or something like that, and he said, "Oh well, it's just life." He gave this answer that was just
gonna die anyway, whatever. Yeah, I
and she's
guess
like,
once you hit your 50s,
and he's just like,
yeah, it's not what someone with, you know, the majority of their life ahead of them compared to their majority of life lived. It's a different perspective. That stuff really is shocking and doesn't mean anything to someone that's young because, you know, they've lived this much, they have this much ahead of them. Good for them. You're gonna fuck up a lot and learn from it and look back on it and say, wow, that was a hell of a ride. But when you've done all that living, there's a peace and an acceptance of everything that comes with that. You've done it all. Mike Tyson, he got to the top of the mountain. Nobody stays at the top of the mountain. The goal is to get there. Once you're there, cool. Get the fuck back down and start living again. Yeah.
Interesting perspective. You know, that's great. Now, so your band, there's a few bands that you've been getting into a lot of super bands. You know how they like to say.
It's just the people you know that you want to form a band with, or that just reach out and say, hey, I want to make a band. You know, it gets to the point where it's like 30, 40 years ago, those same people, you were just all a bunch of high school kids. But at this point, you've been doing it for 40 years and people know what you did. So they call it a super group. But it's just the same shit. It's just a bunch of people that like to play. And it's just, you might have heard of the band that they've been in. So suddenly it's a super group. But it's just, yeah, people that have played with each other and people that know each other. They're like, hey, I want to make a band. You want to play? Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the art of anarchy was more of the rock sort of vibe, rocky sort of vibe. We had Scott Whelan, Scott Stapp, Jeff Scott Soto, a lot of Scots.
Only Scots, yes. Only Scots, and yeah, singers can only be
Great
Scots.
Scott.
So it was some friends of mine that I started producing when they were like teenagers. And like, God, it was, 2011. They wanted to make their dream album. So I was like, come on in. So they came into the studio and they had 10 songs written, just drums and guitar that they play. And I was like, hey, you want to play some extra guitar? I was like, sure. So I'll bust out a solo, whatever. And the idea was to get different singers to sing on different songs. And the first one to say yes was Scott Weiland. And it was incredible what he did. He just took the song to a totally unexpected place, really made that song special. And then he said, why don't we make this a band? I was like, okay, that's simple. So then hitting up bass players and hit up John Moyer from Disturbed. I was like, want to play bass? I'm like, okay. Yeah, so now we're a band. And, you know, things get wonky from there. And then Weiland left and passed, sadly. Scott Stapp joined the band, did another album with him, got wonky. And then during the pandemic, Jeff Scott Soto, you know, was in with Sons of Apollo, and we've done other things together, you know, just play on his album, and we just do a lot of things like I'm mixing someone's song and he sings on it, and Derek plays keys on it, and like all that kind of stuff. And, yeah, we just kept doing a million things together, and he offered, like, hey, if you need another Scott, I mean, it's just a middle name, but, you know, so did a third album with him. And it was all just really, it's just helping these two brothers, these friends, John and Vince Voda, that I've known since they were kids. And yeah, so just gave my support and tried to help them make their dream come true. It's interesting. There's been a lot of cool situations. I had a student named Tom Monda, guitar player, incredible guitar player and just such a smart guy, a wonderful guy. And he went on to form the band Thank You Scientist, which if you haven't heard this band, you must go through their entire discography. Just incredible music, and just phenomenal. So yeah. So nice seeing him go on to do stuff. I take no credit for his success or anything. I'm just happy that I was part of, the journey. Who else? Richie Castellano. He was a teenage kid, was giving guitar lessons at his dad's music store. His dad's parents' music store in Brooklyn. I used to buy gear from them when I was a kid in Brooklyn. And this kid, Richie, was just super talented, incredible, just multi-instrumentalist, musician, genius kid. And he would help me record my albums. I'd be in the studio and I would be singing and he would be hitting record for me and assisting with everything. And we did these crazy lounge albums together under fake names, where we would do Eminem, Ozzy, Outkast, and I would use fake names, Herbert Ruffles Lovecraft and Checkers Goldstein, and we would do lounge versions, these hideous, like offensive lounge versions of, I can put out albums on this one label of all lounge versions of Ozzy, Sabbath songs, Eminem songs, and Outkast. And it was just so cringy to listen to. And it was just so funny. It was the funniest things ever done in my life. But anyway, Richie, he went on to become the sound man for Blue Oyster Cult. Then he became their bassist. Then he became their guitarist. And he's been in the band a long time and writing songs with them and very involved. He's a main member of Blue Oyster Cult for years now. And he's another one. I am proud and honored that I was some little part of his journey. Yeah. I'm taking no credit, no responsibility for anything he has accomplished. It's all him. But it's just interesting how it's just good to see people doing things. And it's nice when, it's just a nice feeling. It's just good to see that shit happening. Seeing people go on that you knew as kids to go on and do great shit.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Satch, right? He taught Vi, Kirk Hammett, Alex Skolnick. I mean, but Skolnick, like, I don't know how much jazz he taught him, because he says bilingual, like he can do both. I mean,
he's incredible. Yeah.
It's nuts, so I'm looking forward to seeing them like next year, but when they come here, but Testament. But yeah, well, that's the thing with the appreciation that I mean, Sash never takes any credit. He can't, but he was just sort of that guiding light in the early stages, and they can do whatever with it.
That's the point. That's what you want to do. You want to take whatever you're doing, share it, and you never know what one person, it's going to change their life, just being part of that directing and just, the butterfly effect in some small way or bigger way of whatever you do. That's the whole thing. And that's the stuff that makes you happy in the end. Like, I don't think about any big shows I played and say, yeah, that was great. No, I think about that shit. I think about the people that I've watched grow, and whether I was even part of it or not. Like, that's kind of the joy of life, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
The giving and the sharing, for sure. And then Sons of Apollo, obviously, with the great Mr. Sheehan and Jeff Scott Soto again, Derek Sherinian. I mean, what? Oh, it's amazing, because that's probably it's probably the heaviest that I've heard on a consistent sort of albums that I've heard you do. And I mean, it's great. It's convincing. I mean, because you've educated yourself on so many different things, different levels as well. But the skill level, I mean, and the progressive metal side of that was just phenomenal. What was that experience like for you, just to have just these legends like Billy Sheehan, like?
Just a bunch of 10-year-old kids. That's all we are. Just that love music and just play. It's no different. In fact, it's more similar to 10-year-old kids. All of us. It would be like Derek would send me an idea and I would send him an idea, and then we would send it back to each other with our next addition to it, and we would just have all these song ideas that we would throw into the hat, and then we would put it all together, and we would, for the first album, we would just get in a big studio room and just play and record as we wrote, and that was it. And Jeff, he likes to write when things are finished, like when the music is finished. He likes to, and I always tried to push him. I always said, write with us as we're making the song, because like an idea you come up with will steer the music in a different direction. And he's like, nah, just, that's not how I like to do it. Just you guys make the music. When the song is done, I'm going to come up with the melodies and everything. And he came up with great stuff. It would have just been this wacky, prog stuff. But he's the one that makes it palatable, digestible songs. And that is Mr. Soto's great skill. Besides his voice, of course, but yeah.
Yeah, and him and obviously Dino, Delusic are buddies, So with Whom Gods Destroy, which that album, it just blew me away. But they all your stuff does, but because I love Dino's sound. I love that old school, that sort of Paul Rodgers-y sort of Coverdale-y sort of
it's like Dio meets Cornell. What a voice! Yeah, what a gift. And both of them are the sweetest. Yeah, they're great guys. Yeah, really cool to hang with and to work with. Yeah, both of them. And yes, Gods Destroy, that one, I did the mixing and mastering and everything on that. And again, it was, don't want these tight, pointy, lifeless drums. No, like I want to hear Bruno, what he really sounds like. Gave me like 24 tracks of drums he recorded, and I made sure that it sounds like him. Yeah.
Bruno from Angra, and Yas Nomura. I mean, he always came up on my feed for years, and then suddenly he's with you guys. Wow.
Yeah, there's nothing he can't do. Yeah, he's amazing.
I didn't know he played bass as well as he did. I knew he was a shredder himself, but that's great. But what I love about your riffs, there's almost, especially your single note sort of riffs. It's sort of a modal. Am I describing this correct? Like a modal sort of vibe to how your riffs. There's no sort of, sometimes there's not much of a resolve, but it's unique. That's what I'm trying to say. It's sort of like the for In the Name of War, like the and that
break that down,
because it's not common, but it's heavy it's really heavy.
Okay, that started off, it was Derek sent me a piano piece that he came up with, which is the intro. Oh, what is the riff? That's it. And he's playing on piano and everything. So he sent me that. So then I guess you could say I responded back and said, okay, I got the next part of the song, which was like this. Then he put on this like, because he'll come up with something that's comfortable for piano or, well, keys, and then I'm like, how the hell am I going to play that on this? So, and then he was like, all right, let's straighten it out for the verse. So it's like each theme becomes a variation, and then we just kind of left field, different chorus. Yeah, when you want to get in tune on this thing, just move your finger. This is killing me. So yeah, and that we use a lot of, just coincidentally, both Derek and I would use an octatonic scale a lot of. It's, I'll break it down. It's almost like 3 modes happening in sections. The easy way to think of it is half step, whole step, half step, whole step, half step, whole step, half step, whole step. Another way to think of it is think of like a Mixolydian scale, where you're raising the 4th. Oops, sorry. And then you're taking the 2, and you're just going around it, a flattening and sharpening. So it's almost like a flat 3 and a 3 with a flat 2. So it's like you have Phrygian, then you have Lydian, then you have Mixolydian. So we do a lot of stuff based around that. So it has that in the chorus. Then it kind of normals out. And then there was another variation for the bridge, where originally we had that, and then this variation. And then for the bridge, it's even more normal. We'll just which is something, what is it called? It's something you do a lot in horror movies, which is you don't stay in the key. Maybe the root stays in the key, but you keep everything minor. So. That kind of thing. You just keep moving minors. That's how you come up with horror movie themes. That's the little trick. So anyway, I was using that idea for. And then just moving it up F minor. And then for the solo, as it was more open, I just expanded on the chord and gave it more of this, on each one, this unresolved, sort of like a minor major 9. Back to that chord. So I was doing a lot of that, just to give just a broader sense to the chords instead of just keeping it.
Yeah,
So,
it gives it an extra element to it and sort of a bit of life. Just looking for something that's a bit, well, it sounds unique, but technically it's obviously it's a variation towards the normal like bluesy stuff. So yeah.
And then when you want to really hold a note, tilt your finger and use the fingernail. So that's what I do, is I play on the fingernail along the string. And it keeps the note going.
Yeah, so you're playing the main riff on the fretless.
Yeah.
I like how I like it because I love because it's not how do you explain it? It's not out of tune, but it's a sort of an off sort of just a slight variance. It just makes it feel a bit more deranged in a sense.
It's very not Schoenberg, just very what's the word? Chromatic. So the approach for a lot of the stuff on that album, the writing approach to give it a sound, is really weird. It's the kick and snare and the bass and the guitar are doing all the off stuff. Instead of being a solid foundation on the bottom, that's just, it's like they're doing all the off shit, and the hands, the cymbal stuff and the vocals are creating like the solid 4/4 groove. So you have something. Trying to think of what's a better example from that album. Oh, okay. Take that song. So the main riff. Tap my foot to it because, like, where the fuck is the one? So while that's going on, you have, and the kick is like hitting on those offs and everything. So it's like this very, like, what the fuck foundation to it. But the vocals are just like very straight. So instead of having like kind of fancy icing on a solid cake, it's like flipping the cake upside down in a way. It's like you have, it was just a very experimental approach to things to see just how it would go, what kind of sound it would make.
And also because Dino is a classically trained pianist as well. I mean, so his input, he would have had input. I'm sure he did. He mentioned to me when I interviewed him, he had some input, right, in the direction, like similar with what you were saying with Jeff Scott Soto. I think Dino had a bit of more of a not that he's any more or less creative. I think it's just a different approach.
Well, with the music, yeah, he involved himself in the music creative part, where Jeff was like, just show me it when it's done and I'm gonna come up with my thing. And Dino, yeah, he was like, you know what, why don't we make this part in 6 instead of 5, and why don't we do this only 3 times? Like, yeah, he was involved. Yeah.
Yeah, and look, not to think, because I love the Sons of Apollo stuff. So I mean, it's just nice to hear the evolution and the personalities of each artist come through with the variations that you had. So yeah, it's really great. But now your new music,